In an account given by the family on April 15th at 10 p.m., it started to rain at the track meet, and so all the athletes went underneath their school's tent to get away from the rain. It was at this time that 17-year-old Anthony Karmelo went under another team's tent, presumably to be with his friend who he had at another school. At this time, Austin Metcalf confronted Karmelo, telling him to leave. A witness claiming to have seen the whole thing told police that Austin and Karmelo began arguing, and at one point Karmelo told Austin to touch me and see what happens as he reached his hand into the bag. In response, the witness tells police that Austin did touch Karmelo, and to which Karmelo said, "Punch me and see what happens." In response, the witness says that Austin grabbed Karmelo, to which at this point Karmelo takes his hand out of his bag and he stabs and he kills Austin. Another witness tells police that at some point Austin did push Karmelo, but it's unclear if that was in response to the first or to the second incident. And then when police arrived, Karmelo didn't run from the police. He was waiting a little bit further away by the track instead of by the tent, and he told police that it's not alleged, I did do it. So the internet has been discussing the degree of responsibility between the two students, and I think that even if Austin was a total prick and he escalated the situation, of course, nobody would think to kill the person. I think that a much more appropriate response would be maybe to argue or to get into a physical confrontation, even because it's two adolescent boys. After all, I was an adolescent boy. But killing or permanently maiming someone, that's way off, and I don't know anybody who would do that. But besides talking about the degree of responsibility between each of the students, the one question that people seem to have is, why did Karmelo have a knife on him, and why did he bring that to the track meet? So research shows that possessing a weapon on you does increase the risk, the lethality of confrontations. And this makes sense because if you're impulsive, you're more likely to reach for a weapon and you're going to hurt people. And this is opposed to the view that having a weapon might deter people or scare them off. It might deter some cases, but overall it seems like it increases the lethality of confrontations. So Karmelo responded that he brought a knife to the track meet because he was being bullied and he used it as self-defense. Karmelo might have a leg to stand on. It's unclear. Maybe he brought it to the track meet because he needed it for when he was going home, or maybe he needed it before school, or maybe he was even doing other illegal activity. Maybe he was selling to a friend. It's not entirely clear that Karmelo did bring a knife, wave it around, or murder someone, or threaten someone, or rob someone, right? So I think that a better question is, why was Karmelo so overeager to use the knife? So we see that when the confrontation first begins, he, instead of engaging in a physical confrontation, he puts his hand in the bag and he eggs Austin on, if you touch me, I'm going to presumably do some harm onto you. The best solution would probably have been just to walk away. A better solution might have been to yell back at him or to push him back, wrestle. Even punches seem a little bit extreme at this case, but stabbing someone is completely, to me, and I think to everybody, even like I have engaged in fights in high school, and stabbing it's always off. It's not that deep. Even though schools will tell you, yeah, you should walk away. You should never engage in a confrontation. Just ignore the bullies, whatever. That's not always possible, and sometimes you have to let fists fly. But murder or stabbing someone, permanently maiming them, that's too much. So in order to understand why Karmelo was so overeager to use the knife, I think it's important to understand the psychological concept of a schema. And so a schema was basically developed by Piaget. He was a developmental psychologist, and he wanted to pinpoint on how do people cognitively develop from birth to adulthood, where they're able to assess social situations, know about objects, etc. So at around 1.5 years old, Piaget pins that people started developing schemas, and schemas are basically like clusters of knowledge that we have about particular like objects or situations. And within these clusters of knowledge, we have scripts, and scripts tell us how we should act in this situation. So a good example of something like this is a lineup. So imagine that you are an alien and an ice cream truck comes by, and let's say that you want to get ice cream. You might be wondering, why is everyone forming a line? Why isn't everyone just packing forward? So indeed, if you are an alien, you might run to the front of the line and just say, well, I want some ice cream. I'm not sure why everyone is forming a line because it's not clear immediately what's happening. But as a human, right, we have a social script that whenever multiple people want something, instead of all pushing each other to the front, we form a line. I also noticed there's something really interesting about forming lines, which is when sometimes people form lines at a bus, you'd have occasional people who cut the line. Every time that I've been on and I take the bus regularly, no one ever tells the person who cuts the line that there's a line to get to the back of the line, because people are too afraid to confront. The social script, it's so strong that it was out of like maybe 20 people, only one person will cut the line. So people will still go to the back of the line and follow the social script, even if you violate it, people don't get punished. In fact, people get rewarded, right? Because they go to the front of the bus, or they get to choose first pick for the seats. So in terms of understand how Karmelo used the script, I wanted to talk about my own story. So I had a similar story actually growing up. It was also a physical confrontation about a seat. I was 15 years old. And what happened was that basically I got up to ask the teacher something, and then another kid sat in my seat. And we were all sort of crowded around watching another kid play a game or watch a movie. I don't quite remember. And I told him to get out of my seat, and he didn't. And eventually he got up and he pushed me. And then we got into, I got up and then I punched him. And the situation about the story is that a lot of people tell me, well, why did you get into a physical confrontation about the seat? Surely you could have let him happen. It's not so much about the seat, in my opinion. It's about, the dignity, the honor of the person. And for me, it was just like, we just have to get up and scrap. Killing somebody or taking, stabbing, putting even something in his eye or breaking his bones, that is not an ideal outcome that I wanted from the situation. And so what you see here in my situation is that I had a certain script. So I said, like, if someone dishonors me, then I have to fight back for my honor. If for Karmelo, he has a different script. If someone dishonors me, then I have to kill them. And this is, I think, the best way that, in short, we can explain the situation. Where Karmelo had a script, I think it's probably more so closer to like something like rap, maybe a little bit more like a gangster, like influenced. Eminem says something interesting about this, where he says that in rap, people always say we have to hurt them or we're going to kill you. But Eminem says this is real life. He says that he doesn't actually want to hurt anybody. For some of my classmates who they told me that, why would you get into a fight about this, whatever. Their script was like, oh, if it's not worth it, so I'm going to walk away. For me, my script was that I have to fight and I have to fight for my honor, right? Basically, in a way. And for other people, for Karmelo, sorry, his script is that I have to kill him. And in terms of understanding the scripts, I think the issue is that Karmelo had never we don't have any rules for what do we do in this situation. So it's like a lineup, right? A lineup it has a very simple rule. And I think that what we should do is something that this is interesting about masculinity, where we should have clear rules. I think that we often shy away from physical confrontation. And so when physical confrontation happens, we can't tell fiction. So it's sort of like stuff like rap or music, right? Like media shows, right? Where it's kind of like fantasy make-believe is cool. We can't tell that apart from real life because we don't get into physical confrontations at all. That is so heavily discouraged. I think what we should do is we should take a step back. We should allow a little bit of physical confrontation between boys, because what should have happened is that, he insults him. Maybe Austin is not entirely right. And maybe Karmelo, maybe he's also not entirely right. But they get into a scrap, they bleed out a little bit. So who cares? But because we don't have that script, because violence is so, or not violence, but physical confrontation is so derogated in our society. It's not allowed, especially between people who are just growing up and just learning about the world, that people, once a physical confrontation is necessary, people have no idea what to do. And so they will result to what they see in, I think, depictions, probably of media, right? That's what Karmelo did, and he resulted in murder. So in summary, Karmelo didn't have a script for a physical confrontation from real life, because I think physical confrontation is so heavily discouraged that he ended up using a script from media. And so what we should be doing is we should be supplementing, so people don't use a script that they see from TV shows, from the Avengers, or other TV shows where someone insults him, he's gonna beat him up, because that's not realistic. What we should be supplementing that is we should be allowing a healthy level of physical confrontation between boys, I think, in society. So that's my explanation of why Anthony Karmelo brought the knife and why he was so overly eager to use it. I think a lot of people were left puzzled on why he would do that, but when we look at it through the psychology of a script, his behavior makes so much more sense. And before you go, if you're very interested in the psychology of things, consider subscribing. We're growing a little group where we're trying to learn about these applications in media. And if you wanted to see, I actually made a video of the psychology of a stalker, which is a Netflix show, but it's based on a real life story. And I'm going to leave that somewhere over here.